Welcome back to my G1 Retro Reviews. Today, we're taking a look at the original Transformers series episode, The Killing Jar. In this episode, a handful of characters travel to an alternate universe. We begin with Ultra Magnus doing some stargazing when he's abducted by a Quintesson scientist using what he describes as mirage cloaking. Although Mirage turned invisible, he didn't project holograms like Hound. Well, at least not in G1 he didn't. He pits him against a fake Rodimus, a knockoff if you would. But eventually the Quintesson stops toying with him and goes to collect Cyclonus. There he disguises the ship as Broadside? Okay, wasn't Broadside destroyed in the previous 5-parter? Also, Broadside is an Autobot. Why would Cyclonus trust an Autobot? Well, apparently this is somewhat retconned in the Takara Legends manga, with Broadside admitting that he briefly worked with the Decepticons, which is kind of interesting and probably the most character development that he's ever gotten, at least as far as the cartoons go. I know he had more to do in the old G1 Marvel comics, what with being a wrecker and all, but I haven't read those. Seriously, Broadside could be a really cool character. He's a giant triple changer on the same scale as someone like Tidal Wave from Transformers Armada. He could almost be like the Transformers version of the SDF-1 from Robotech. I like the idea of a group of Autobots basically using him as their ship, or even some kind of home base, kind of like Fortress Maximus meets the Teen Titans Tower, and him only transforming into robot mode when they need a big heavy hitter. I guess that would make him more like Omega Supreme in animated then. So they play the same game with Cyclonus, pitting him against a third-party Galvatron. They then go and abduct Wreck-Gar, using a Junkion ship with a clown in it. Okay, first of all, Wreck-Gar, you should never trust a clown, and especially don't go anywhere with them. That's some serious stranger danger. And second, Lippo the clown's mouth keeps disconnecting from his face, and it's really disturbing. Maybe it's a problem with their hollow projector? Well, Wreck-Gar makes himself at home in his new cage.
Home, sweet home.
And finally, the Quintessons go to get Marissa Fairborn, luring her in with an illusion of her father, Flint. The fake Flint is even played by the same voice actor as Flint from G.I. Joe, Bill Ratner. And while a lot of the cast on Transformers also worked on G.I. Joe, Bill did not play any characters in Transformers aside from this cameo appearance. So that's kind of cool that they got him in just to play this one-off part, which helps solidify the connection between these two franchises. Although, I'm guessing since G.I. Joe and Transformers were both produced by the same company, they probably already had Bill in the studio to do a G.I. Joe episode the same day as this Transformers one, or something like that. But still, it's really cool that this is another link between these two properties. We'll see an even bigger link later on, but that's not for a while.
Humans are disgusting creatures.
On that, we agree, Quint. I mean, have you seen some of the stuff that comes out of their bodies? Ew. When they pit Marissa against her father, they have it morph into this humanoid Quintesson hybrid. I wonder if they did this as to not show a daughter fighting her father in a cartoon. I'd bet there's some kind of TV standards and practices thing that goes against showing domestic violence in a children's cartoon. The captives meet each other and their jailer.
You are an insect to be studied and then disposed of when you are no more use to me. All of you.
For those who are wondering, this is where this episode gets its title from. A killing jar is a jar used by entomologists to kill captured insects while doing as little damage to them as possible so that they can be studied later. I honestly did not know that until doing this review.
Guard, activate the cell submission device. I will examine the human first.
I bet you will, Mr. Tentacle Arms. I know just what kind of experiments you plan on doing to her. Marissa tries to break out when the ship wanders into an electron storm. The captives eventually escape their cells as the ship escapes the storm. So they battle the Quintessons and each other. And I like how Wreck-Gar uses his shield like Captain America's. Or maybe it's more like Bucky using Cap's shield. You know, because he only has one arm? Do you think the Junkions have seen the Marvel movies? Do they get Disney Plus on Planet Junk? But the fighting stops as they are all threatened by a black hole. Now where have I seen this before?
Tragic romances always have a happy ending.
Farewell! Nobody really knows what happens in a black hole. It's possible she's still alive in another dimension somewhere. Right, Professor?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I would use a clip from that Doctor Who episode that was very similar, but I don't want another copyright claim from the BBC again.
Aft section. Aft section?
Yeah, the aft section. You do know what the rear of a ship is called, don't you, Magnus? Or are you only familiar with detonating them? Or maybe I just know what it is because I'm a Newfie girl. Also, if you have a porthole on the aft section of a ship, is that technically an aft hole?
Most inferior.
The passengers fight over who will get the last functioning escape pod.
Marissa, stay up all night long.
All night long, all night.
Hey, not you too, Rekgar. Stop hitting on Marissa.
You know, of course, that I can take care of myself.
Yes, you can, girl. Although, these are giant robots. I mean, you were pretty impressive against the Quintessons, but you are still just a little squishy human. So the pod takes off without anyone aboard, and Ultra Magnus gets shot out the aft hole. But Cyclonus uses his tractor beam to save him.
Cyclonus, you saved me? But why? Warriors such as you and I should meet their end in battle.
This is why I like Cyclonus. He's one of those baddies with a sense of honor, like Dinobot in Beast Wars, or Starscream in Transformers Armada, or Dreadwing in Transformers Prime. I've got a real soft spot for these kinds of bots. So, Ultra Magnus and Cyclonus bicker like an old married couple, and I love it.
Cyclonus, I can finish my own thoughts. I don't need you to do it for me. Maybe the thought was not yours to begin with, Ultra Magnus.
I already have the Kingdom Ultra Magnus. Now I'm tempted to get Cyclonus to add another ship to my shelf. I'm not too happy with that Cyclonus, especially the colors. I'm sure the Hasbro will eventually come out with a better version, probably in the Studio Series line. They enter the black hole and find themselves in a negative universe, which is different from both the Shattered Glass universe and the Negative Zone. Here, the characters gain some weird alternate color schemes, ones which aren't actually based on anything. They aren't the reverse of their normal color schemes or anything like that, although Cyclonus's is kind of close. And Ultra Magnus's kind of reminds me of Roadbuster. Or maybe I'm just trying to connect this with that Transformers animated Roadbuster Ultra Magnus redeco. I think it would have been cool if their negative color schemes were the opposite of their originals, although those color schemes are just as unappealing. I'm also surprised that Hasbro never released any of these characters in these negative universe color schemes, especially now that we have more recent versions of Ultra Magnus, Cyclonus, and Rekgar. Although, would anyone buy a Killing Jar Generation Selects box set? That seems like it would be very expensive, being a leader class and 2 Voyagers. More if they included Marissa and or the Quintessons. So they quickly turn around and go through the white hole, returning them to their own universe. Shame, I wonder what the rest of this negative universe looked like. They arrive in their home dimension with their respective allies battling each other. It's interesting that the Decepticons here are represented by Astrotrain. Now why didn't they use him at the beginning instead? Alternatively, if they're going to use Skylynx again here for the Autobots, probably because he's a newer toy, why not Broadside for the Decepticons? It'd at least keep it consistent to this episode. Oh well. So they return home, and we are left with a message for this episode.
We traveled from one universe to another and back again. But as citizens of the same galaxy, we're still so far apart.
Well, that was a really good episode of the original Transformers series. I love the dynamic between Ultra Magnus and Cyclonus, how they are so much alike but on opposite sides of the war. It would have been great to see them explore this more throughout the rest of the series, but sadly, I don't think they really do. And like I said, I enjoyed seeing them travel to another universe. I wish they did it more in this episode and Transformers in general. I mean, the only other time I can think of where a Transformer travels to another universe is in Cyberverse. And even then, we don't really see much of it. I would really like to see a series where Bach gets lost in an alternate universe and has to find her way home. But hey, who would be interested in a Transformers isekai? Oh wait, that's my backstory. Huh, let me know if that interests you, Hasbro, and we can make a show about my life story. Well, let me know what you thought of this episode of G1 down in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and do all that other fun stuff. And I'll see you back here for the next episode of G1 Chaos. See you then!